In a surprise twist, Paramount Plus released the Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks crossover episode early. The fans have anticipated this episode for some time now. To complement the episode, the entire title sequence of Strange New Worlds has been animated in the Lower Decks animation style, therefore making it in theme with the crossover episode we are watching. Now, I was initially skeptical about the concept of this. However, it worked well and pleasantly surprised me. The in-jokes and references worked well as much of the original storyline of the episode. Personally, Star Trek rarely gets me laughing. Even Lower Decks as a series sometimes struggles to get a laugh out of me. I'm not miserable, I promise. But Anson Mount's expressions and overall acting this episode made me laugh at certain moments. You can tell Pike is enjoying the time travel shenanigans at certain moments while also being irritated by it. Spoiler warning, this is our full review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Those Old Scientists. You've been warned for spoilers, don't watch if you haven't seen it yet, or go online, common sense really. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack. Feels odd we're recording this review on a Sunday, right? Here we go. Make sure to hit that follow and subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. Okay, engage. An animation show crossing over the live action one. Sure, things like this have been done in the past. However, this is a first for Star Trek. I think they pulled it off well. Having legendary director and actor Jonathan Frakes directing this episode also helps. The man gets Star Trek and understands the universe he walks in. For example, the in-jokes in the episode worked so well, like Pike and Una talking about the communicators and they're flipping open and how they're kind of better. Meh. When we first heard of these two shows doing a crossover, the first thought was how they was going to be achieved. Would the genre shift work? How would they blend the animated and the non-animated forms together? The big thing to note is that our crew of the Sweetos don't know they are animated. There weren't so many jokes to break that illusion. We got a small joke of Boimler feeling more real as he lands at the portal, and then our Enterprise crew feeling more 2D because of alcohol. Sort of an in-joke, it works. How this episode was able to match tone was incredible, and made both of these shows feel extremely connected to both themselves and the greater Star Trek universe. Can also take this opportunity to say that the weird portal thing on the planet reminds me of a Stargate. This episode actually gives us a fantastic look at some spaces on the Enterprise we have not yet seen before. Well, not in Strange New Worlds. We actually get a really good look at the shuttle bay in this series. Finally, we can complete the Pike's Enterprise breakdown we've been trying to do once again. Get me Adam! How this episode utilised continuity in not only in a Lower Decks Easter egg way, but also in a way the episode continued series-long character arcs woven into the narrative of Strange New Worlds was superb. Though that is not to say this episode doesn't have Easter eggs. We got mentions of Travis Mayweather and Hoshi Sato, but also some great world building. In this episode, they are trying to deliver trificlate grain to the Setlic system. That was an interesting word to say. Blech. In the Troubles of Tribbles episode, the Enterprise is transporting Quadricale, which is another case of advanced grain that has 4 distinct lobels per kernel compared to the 3 lobeled variant the Enterprise was delivering in this episode. However, going back to the main narrative, the elements of continuing character arcs such as Spock and Chapel to Uhura were implemented in natural connective ways. Let's start with Spock and Chapel. Boimler is horrified that Spock is embracing his human side, smiling and making jokes because it's not the Spock he knows of. Just like how this Spock is not the Spock we know. He's acting different and at this point in time, it's weird. This is done excellently in a real emotional scene where Boimler is worried and tells Chapel he isn't known for being like this. This obviously tells Chapel that their romance doesn't really affect Spock in a tangible way, and though she never really expected it to, it still doesn't bode well for their future. There is also a great scene where Spock and Boimler are having to try and synthesize the material to help get them back home, and Spock saying, "Do you feel lucky?" To Boimler, it's kind of hilarious but creepy at the same time. As we saw in the last episode, Uhura is really struggling to get her work-life balance. I can relate. And when Mariner gets thrown into the fray, she actually helps Uhura not only learn a little bit about to have fun and relax, but even to solve a problem they were facing by doing something different. Mariner and Ortega's were a pairing which I didn't really expect, but totally adored. We get a little more of Ortega's backstory of her being on the Klingon front during the Klingon Federation War and being known as a war hero by Boimler in the future. This episode was also great for Pike, and very centered on him and how he is dealing with these toddlers running around his ship. He even gets to a point where he's sort of given up and just lets them help Spock and Uhura. But the smiles we get from Pike were amazing. He actually likes being looked up to, and from the superfan Boimler, he gets a lot of that, which is kind of really cool. Anson Mount easily sells us with his acting as Captain Pike. We've already had a taste of this in Charades earlier this season. Now we see his acting range on display once again and he steals a role. I hope we get more and more seasons of Strange New Worlds, as I'm not ready to give up Pike just yet. I suppose the reason why he does like being adored is not only just some egotistical thing, even if that is part of it, but it means he has a future regardless of what happens to him. He has a legacy. He will inspire kids to dress up like him for Halloween, and all good qualities, and diplomacy, patience, and even his great hair. I need to take after that. Throughout this episode, we get moments where Boimler was freaked out by number 1. Throughout this episode, Una thinks it has something to do with her future, and we do too. After season 1's final having Una arrested, and knowing that Una is not mentioned ever again after Strange New Worlds, it got a lot of us worrying. The twist of writing had in store for us, which was executed perfectly as well. At first we have Marinette explaining that Boimler has a poster of number 1 in his bunk. This was a slight deflection, but didn't really set my mind at ease at the fate of Una. That particular scene was done so well by Tawny and Rebecca, with Una asking if it was a pin-up poster in such a hilarious way. How this was wrapped up though at the end was another emotional scene. Marinette explains that Una becomes a poster woman for Starfleet. The motto is even ad astra per aspera. This was so powerful considering how great that titular episode was. The episode was all about Una being open about who she is and being accepted by her family and Starfleet. Not just by the crew of the Enterprise, but Starfleet as a whole. So this is a sign that her struggles bore such fruit, and it was worth it. It validated herself, and it was such a powerful thing. Another great thing is that we see the pose of Una at the end in Boimler's bunk, which I hope will be there in the next season of Lower Decks. However, bringing in Commander Jack Ransom in the final scene, knowing that actor Jerry O'Connell is the husband of number 1's actress, Rebecca Romaine, so having him comment on number 1 being the hottest first officer in Starfleet was a great in-joke because he's basically complimenting his wife. Kinda funny, isn't it? We had at the start of the episode Tandy explaining how her great-grandmother discovered the portal, and not all Orions are pirates. Even in Lower Decks, that has been used as a joke a number of times, but may not all be pirates. The Orion starship Devar, I still can't tell if it's actually a legitimate science ship, or it's just on the back of piracy or not. Well, look, we're not pointing all Orions as being pirates, right? You know, this was an episode I was not sure about. I like my Strange New Worlds to be serious and to the point, like the Gorn episodes and the season premiere, The Broken Circle. Injecting too much humour can sometimes backfire and take away from the seriousness of the show. However, with that being said, this episode handles the animated crossover exceptionally well. It also treated both sets of characters as they are. I've got to hand it to both the writers and director here. This is an excellent episode of Star Trek and talks about not only how we deal with the past, but how we deal with our futures. For the most part, the directing done by the Trek god at this point, which is Jonathan Frakes, was very good. I do wonder how much say he had over the animated parts, or whether it was handed off to a Lower Decks director. There are some particular shots which felt like a weird choice, and there are some instances of point of view shots from Boimler which can work to help us view the bridge through Boimler's eyes. Literally, it didn't blend at the best points, but there are other scenes like that did work well. The writing of this episode, done by Catherine Lin and Bill Wolkoff, was also extraordinary. I felt that Catherine's previous comedic-centric Strange New Worlds episode of Charades wasn't the strongest, but having originated from Lower Decks and doing the Amazing Wage Do episode and handing Lower Decks on 3 different ships, that made her perfect role of essentially doing a Lower Decks of the Enterprise under Pike. Bill Wolkoff previously did Ghosts of Illyria and Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach in Season 1, and has done an excellent job here as well. The episode was a small epilogue of Ad Astra per Aspera earlier in this season. Being able to do that, which is some great world building, some great character work, and walking a fine line of tone, it was expertly done and should be commended. Animating the entire Strange New Worlds crew at the end of the episode was a bold choice. I'm not sure how keen I am on Captain Pike's animated style, however that said, I absolutely adore the style overall. These characters actually work super well in animated form. Perhaps this is a future avenue that Star Trek could explore. I mean it when I say I'd pay more to see more anime adventures in Star Trek. I grew up with the likes of Star Wars or Clone Wars on TV every Saturday morning. Animation is still a perfect avenue for storytelling of viewers of any age. It depends whether Star Trek want to commit to it. If this episode achieves one thing, then I hope it is this. More people are checking out and watching Star Trek Lower Decks. Perhaps you did not think this type of series would be for you. Hopefully this episode shows it can appeal to a wider audience all around. Seriously, check it out and let me know what you think. Or perhaps you already have. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4 premieres on September 7th, so keep an eye out for that one, it's going to be fun. You know, Strange New Worlds has taken some bold steps in its second season. Whether taking a detour with Spock or setting up James C. Kirk, it's taking some giant strides. We've even got a musical episode coming up as the second season's penultimate episode. For now, and looking to the future, I'm very excited to see where the Gorn threat heads. But with that saying, and when we get season 3 of Strange New Worlds, I hope it keeps taking bold strides to deliver interesting results like this. Keep them coming, it's working. So, what did you think of this episode? Let us know your honest thoughts in the comment section below. Next week we have the episode 8, Under the Cloak of War, which perhaps will advance the Gorn War situation that is brewing in Starfleet right now. Very exciting. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button there somewhere to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack. Thank you very much for joining me on a Sunday to review Strange New Worlds. Weird, I know, right? We'll see you very soon back with our preview video this coming week. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.